Welcome into the DNVR Avalanche Postgame Show, live from the Toyota Lounge, powered by your Front Range Toyota dealerships and presented by Bet365. We've got Bailey and Rudo coming to you late nights after the Avs drop this one in overtime 4-3 to the Utah Mammoth. They do get a point out of the game. They do avoid a regulation loss. Some streaks survive the night. I actually do think there's a lot of positives to take out of this game, too, for a game that didn't look super great at times, and they do end up losing. What's your overall take on this one, Bailey?
It's just very choppy.
Yeah.
Very back and forth. I didn't like a lot of what I saw from the Avalanche. There were some bright lights in some interesting spaces, and I think that can come from any part of the game, not just the team as a whole. Certain players had very choppy nights. Martin Necas is the one that stands out to me the most. It just, I didn't love this one from the Avalanche. It's not, overall, not their best of the season. Definitely down there with one of the worst, but
as a full game, I think it's their worst.
Yeah.
The second period against the Utah last game was maybe a worse period, but as a complete 60 minutes, I think this was their worst game of the season by a good bit.
Yeah.
So I would agree with that take. We'll get into all of it. Let's start with a 60-second rundown of the game. First period was quite messy, but a kind of high event both ways. The Avs get rewarded with that. They score first off a Makar shot that gets deflected, goes into the back of the net for them. They're up 1-0. Second period, actually thought it started out pretty okay. The Avs get what should have been a Gabe Landeskog goal early in the period. Do not worry, we'll spend a full period of this podcast talking about that goal. It ends up not counting. One ends up not counting for Utah the other way because of goalie interference. Then Utah strikes twice, once on the power play, once not, to make it 2-1 as Colorado's puck management completely falls apart through the second half of the second period. It got really, really ugly at times there. Third period, the Avs do manage to strike back quickly to get it back to 2-2. Jack Drury cleans up a rebound bounced puck kind of thing to tie it, but Utah gets that goal back off of yet another defensive turnover for the Colorado Avalanche. Late in the game, Marty Necas continues his point streak, extends that to 7 games. I'm out of time, but I got the regulation goals in. And then the game goes to overtime, tied 3-3, where Nathan MacKinnon just makes a horrible turnover. It ends up in the back of your net, 4-3. Utah wins. We'll break all of that down in more detail here. Let's start with the first period, though, before we really dive into the nonsense of this game. Yes, from the word jump, Avs puck management was very poor. There is no argument to that. There is no excuse to that. I think it should be very easy for Colorado to look at the puck management and say, hey, this is where we lost this hockey game. It has to be better than it was tonight.
And I think that comes from both sides, too. The puck was just not in any sort of, managed manner on any part of the ice.
Yep.
I think Utah can relate a lot to that as well.
Yep.
You get that good bounce from Cale Makar early-ish in the first period, and there's just not a whole lot to take away for me there. I think when I look at that period, Cale Makar goal aside, fourth line looked great. I personally,
at 5-on-5 they were really good. Brindley took a dumb penalty and it cost you. And we'll have the special teams conversation later.
I was gonna say that came more during the second period. I didn't love them during the second period. There were good moments. Again, going back to my earlier comment, I just wasn't overall a positive. I think if we're ranking, that was probably my second favorite period. But that's not saying much, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I do not think, while I do believe there are a good number of silver linings to take out of this game, and we'll talk about those, the Avs should not be happy with a lot of what they did tonight. They don't come out of this, unlike the Stars loss, where you come out of that game going, hey, they played really good. They probably win that game a lot of the time. There's a lot of versions of this game where the Avs do not get a point out of it.
No, absolutely. I think especially in the defensive 2/3 of the ice, they kind of fall apart more so. I will say when they get set up in the O-zone, I actually did not mind it.
Yeah,
I think
when the puck didn't fly off somebody's stick.
Right, yeah, and they can actually make crisp passes. I mean, you and I were talking about it during watch along. It just was not a very simplified game. You see them trying to get way too fancy in areas where they can't afford to do that.
Yeah, I think this is something they have struggled with a lot last year too. Sometimes they don't recognize the game you're in, and they're trying to play a certain way that isn't working. And sometimes they just try to force that way of playing too often. And I do think they did a decent job in the third period of course correcting tonight. I do think there was some of that. That's one of the silver linings. But ultimately, it's a game where maybe a little bit too little too late. And there are obviously extraneous factors that we'll get into that maybe cause some momentum shifts and things like that in this game. And I do think the Avs deserve a lot of credit for repeatedly putting themselves back in this game. Again, they've still never trailed by 2 this season, by the way.
No.
So a game where they didn't play well, in fact, a game where they played poorly, I would argue, was still one that they kept in hand, kept in reach, and gave themselves a chance.
No, and that's an, I think, important piece of this game, too, is it is very much so like the first Utah game where they did not deserve to come out of this one with the win at all.
Yeah.
But the fact that it was as close as it was, solely because of that course correcting in the third period, I think says a lot about this team. It is a situation too little too late. And I think in the first two periods especially, they get caught. We talked a lot about being comfortable and going into games with that comfortable feeling. And I think that's kind of how they went into this, is this, okay, no, we're sitting in a good spot. We really like how we're playing.
Yeah.
Almost kind of a let off the gas type situation. And that's where you see them fall apart.
Yeah, there was a good amount of casualness to this game for Colorado at times that I really didn't like.
Yeah.
It's one of those situations where you say, well, they got a point out of this. They keep getting away with it to a certain extent.
When does that stop?
Right.
How much longer do you get that lucky?
I don't know that I'd argue that the Avs got lucky in this game, to be fair, but there was some good breaks that went their way. And yeah, it's, you can't come away with this game feeling like, okay, we got a point. It's all right. You need to come away from this game saying we're better than that.
No, absolutely. And you see strides of that in the third period too. This, you see them become themselves, which is, again, a light at the end of the tunnel. This is very much so, though. We know how to play, and a too little, too late could not get there. Maybe lucky is the wrong word to use, but you see that push, and you wonder where that was.
Yeah.
For the first, especially the first 20.
If you clean it up halfway through the second period, you probably never trail in this game. It took too long for it to click for Colorado, for sure. I agree with that take. We can continue through the game here. You get into the second period, and we'll have a break in the middle of this. But at least on our side of things, everyone wants to talk about the Gabe Landeskog no goal.
Yeah.
And first of all, before we even get into the nonsense of it, it's a great play from the Avs to set this up. Gabe Landeskog with a great finish on what should have been a goal that sets the Avs up 2-0, and then you are in a completely different game from what you ended up playing.
Yeah.
They call it offside, and Nathan MacKinnon is offside. Don't get me wrong. He's on the ice.
There's no question about that.
He was on the ice when the puck crosses. All of that is there. I don't even know. Clearly, in my opinion, Val Nichushkin never touches that puck. Never even affects that puck, if I'm being honest. And I know you have the NHL's official statement on this.
The explanation reads verbatim. Video review determined that the actions of Valeri Nichushkin caused the puck to enter the Utah zone while Nathan MacKinnon was in an offside position. Parts of that I have things I want to talk about, but that latter part, there's nobody, contesting that. Continuing. The decision was made in accordance with Rule 83.2, which states in part, any action by an attacking player that causes a deflection/rebound off a defending player in the neutral zone back into the defending zone, i.e. stick check, body check, physical contact, a delayed offside shall be signaled by the linesperson. That's where I want to talk about the word action and caused.
There's a lot of words that I want to talk about in that statement. First of which being, unless you are a fan of the Utah Mammoth and are just happy that a break went your way, I don't understand how you can possibly think that the NHL got this call correct.
No, absolutely not. There's a land that sounds a little delusional that you might be living in if that is the case. I don't understand how they get that wrong. And it comes down to, there are bad calls on the ice all the time. That happens. We see that in every single NHL game. When you have that much time to
5 minutes reviewing the thing.
Reviewing it, and you still get it wrong.
Yep.
That wrong.
It's not, there is no redirect. There is no deflection there. Does the Utah player mishandle the puck? Sure. But he is clearly the last one to touch it, and he clearly puts it back into his own zone, which, as the rule states, if the defending team puts a puck back into their own zone, the offside is negated.
It comes down to, I think at that point, initiation and that definition of initiating the play. Valeri Nichushkin, if you're saying that he initiated that play by forcing the player to pull the puck back into his own zone, that should be the rule. But Nichushkin doesn't touch it.
He doesn't touch the puck. He doesn't even really touch the player. I don't, to be honest with you, the wording of that explanation just screams, we're wrong and we're not going to admit it to me. That's it.
I made a bad call and I don't want to go back on it. It's a double down.
Yep.
That's all it is.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. And it's disappointing that we have a challenge system to get the calls right. And even through the challenge, we still aren't convinced that they got the call. In fact, we're convinced they got the call wrong, despite having the challenge, despite having these angles. And I can live with a world where, we got the call. Even if the NHL came back 5 minutes later and said, you know what, this is probably the wrong call, I'd have respected it a lot more than what they actually gave us.
Comes down to accountability.
Yeah, exactly.
At that point, really. And I've said this multiple times. I would love if, media, post-game, we're able to sit down with some of the people making these decisions to ask where it's coming from, what the thought process is, why it takes so long for that call to happen. And what do you do as a hockey player in this situation? Because it is the conversation, I can't forecheck now. Yeah.
That guy's in the neutral zone. It's not like Val is skating offside to go forecheck this guy and make a play. Puck is allowed to be played in the neutral zone. If Val Nichushkin steals that puck and sends it back to his defenseman, play continues on. It puts the players in an impossible situation because now they don't know what they can and can't do. And I know it's a weird situation where there's an offside that doesn't come up very often, which, by the way, get off the ice.
Right.
Jump over the boards. Do something. There is a little bit of this that I do think the Avs could have had a little more urgency with. But to also have a play pan out where even if they lied to me in the explanation, said Val Nichushkin touched it, we think Nichushkin touched that puck, I'd be like, all right, then at least by the rules, you're correct.
Yeah.
But they just ignore their own rule book, say a thing that makes no sense to anyone, and is like, yep, that's why we did it, because we said so. So there, go to your room.
Yeah. No, and something else you mentioned too. It comes down to one player safety too, because now what ends are they going to go to make sure a right place or wrong place, right time type situation does not happen again.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I am seriously again, the more that I look at this description and this explanation, the less words that I have. Because it is that confusing to me. And I know, you ask anybody out there, I did not play hockey, so obviously there are people who know a crap ton more than I do. But to get it that wrong, I have no words.
Yeah, that's a tough one for me. I do want to talk a little bit more about this, but we need to hit our first break of the show. Yep. So let's make sure we are doing that, as we are brought to you by the official vehicle of DNVR and the official vehicle of the Colorado Avalanche. That is Toyota. They've got a vehicle for everyone. Trucks have always been a part of Toyota's DNA for generations. They've built durable legends destined for greatness and perfect for Colorado. They've also got SUVs. They've got sedans, whatever you might need. 17 different models with all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive available, like the Epic 4Runner, and 16 different hybrid vehicles to choose from, even hybrid trucks like the Tundra iForce Max. So get in with Toyota today. Make sure you're hitting up your local Front Range Toyota stores, including AutoNation Toyota Rapid and Centennial, Coleman Toyota in Boulder, Groove Toyota in Littleton, Mountain States Toyota in Denver, Stevenson Toyota East in Aurora, Stevenson Toyota West in Lakewood. Again, Toyota, the official vehicle of us here at DNVR and the Colorado Avalanche. Toyota, let's go places. And once you got yourself into a fancy new Toyota, make sure you're also taking care of your money here in Colorado with Ent Credit Union. You can jump in with Ent Credit Union, and they are offering to help out Broncos fans make the most of the season. Especially after that ridiculous comeback the other day. You might believe in Bo Nix just yet. For those of you who don't know Ent, it's the largest credit union in Colorado, proudly serving communities all over the state. And they have a Broncos fan checking account loaded with tons of perks, including a chance to win Broncos tickets every 15 swipes of your Broncos checking debit card. You can also get Bo Nix on that as a custom debit card to show off to the fans. You also get 10% off food and gear on game days at Empower Field. There's no surprise fees and more. If you're ready to bank like a Bronco, head over to ent.com/DNVR. That's ent.com/DNVR to learn more. Of course, Ent is insured by NCUA. Membership required. Account requires associated Ent Broncos debit card. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast, and I'm a bit of two minds about this because that goal does not count. And the Avs definitely deflate. There is no doubt that shifted the momentum of the game. And that's something out of your control. There is a level of human nature where stuff like that is going to happen. And instead of being up 2-0, it's a 1-0 game and Utah has all of the momentum. I don't fault the Avs that much.
No.
For that part of it. But I do struggle because it comes back the other way. Utah scores a goal that ends up not counting on the other end of the ice. This one was clear goalie interference. I think there's a lot less to talk about on that one. It was a clear no goal. They waved it off initially. Utah didn't even challenge. A clear no goal, but it feels like that should have been a delineation point where Colorado can shake it off, get back into this game, and start playing cleaner hockey. And they just never really did that in the second period.
I think Jack Drury, the timing of that situation near Wedgewood was this is a word where I will use maybe lucky or smart or in some cases, because if Jack Drury's half a second later to that check, maybe doesn't
line up.
No, Utah maybe gets a bit of a better break with that one. This is a situation where Colorado could have looked at this and been like, this game is maybe not just against us. Utah might feel a certain way about this. Let's use this as some sort of push to get back to our game, or at least find some of it that had not been there since the initial puck drop. Yeah. That's the mindset that I am about this. Unfortunately, we don't see them get there until I think it starts to become gradual through the third period.
Yeah,
certain players start to find similar games, and it's not until about the 10-minute mark where I see them maybe looking like the Colorado Avalanche that we have been used to watching all season.
Yeah.
And I say all season as if we're
all
not
seven
like 7
games
games of it, but the Avalanche that we've seen so far.
Yeah, and it's not a loss that I'm super interested in nitpicking every detail of. There are a lot of problems. We'll talk about some individual players in a minute here, but the Avs just didn't play very well for far too long. And they still managed to point, but it's something that you would have really liked to see them show a little bit more, a little bit faster. Yes, there's ebbs and flows to games. Sometimes momentum's not going to be going your way. But it's those times when that momentum drags out across essentially a whole period, like it did in the second, where
questions start becoming a little more prevalent. And
how much of that is Utah riding the momentum and being the better team, and how much is the Avs not being the better team?
Right. No, that's I think Utah definitely, it comes down to a will to win and how much of this is deserved.
Yep.
And again, ebbs and flows. We talk about it all the time. Utah was absolutely the better team here. You see them kind of hide in their shells a little bit during the third period. And I think the Avalanche were very opportunistic there and capitalizing on that. And that, I think, helped shift a lot of their game.
Yep.
But if it comes down to a question of was Utah better or was Colorado better, I feel like my answer is pretty easy there.
Yeah, the team that won was better. You get through this second period, and you give up 2 goals that actually counted to Utah. For the first time this year, or this season, I suppose I should say, the Avs lose the special teams battle.
Yeah.
There's a pretty bad breakdown on the penalty kill. This is one of the things I'm not worried about. The penalty kill had been super good all season. You're supposed to get scored on occasionally when you're penalty killing. Fine. Yeah. Whatever. It goes in. I'm not going to fight it. The Avs only get 1 power play the other way, and it's a split power play. Yeah. It's hard to really knock that either.
Right. You lose momentum there at that point, too. I'm not a huge fan of them.
And they score literally like 20 seconds after the power play ends. Right. So it's like one of those pseudo...
Like, how much did this really matter?
Yeah. Right.
I don't know. The Avalanche, absolutely, like, there's no question. This is the worst that their special teams have looked so far.
I would agree.
I have loved it. Nobody who is a stranger to this podcast knows that I have loved how the PK has looked so far through 6 games. They have been one of the more dominant forces, I think, in the NHL. If I'm not mistaken, this is their 3rd goal allowed.
Believe that's correct.
On the penalty kill, which is impressive in and of itself.
Yep.
And to see that fall apart due to a dumb penalty in part of Gavin Brindley, it is disheartening. But I don't think, I mean, you mentioned nitpicking. This is a game that I maybe kind of shove off my back, and I'm like, you've seen the capabilities. You saw that come out to shine. And compared to the start last season, I think this is still an immense improvement. You see the Avalanche become that team again that started the last season with these really, really poor starts, and then you see them make that late period or late game push, and it's just not enough.
Yep.
Yes, special teams sucked, to put it bluntly, tonight.
Yep.
But it's you've seen what they're capable of. So I don't think this is anything. They do some video on it tomorrow, or they talk about it after the game today, and they go and take care of business on Thursday.
Yeah, I think it is worth pointing out that you lost a game by 1 goal and you lost the special teams battle 1-0. But again, don't take the dumb penalty, I think, is the only real takeaway you can have from that.
Otherwise, again, Gavin Brindley, part of that fourth line
was good.
Was like, again, they had their moments where I was maybe like, that's not the greatest, but that is maybe the biggest gripe that I have. Otherwise, I think they were one of the better lines for Colorado tonight.
I don't know that I'm particularly upset with any line as a whole, and we'll get more into this because you can definitely have some problems with the top line tonight, I think, but they ultimately score the goal that gets you to overtime, even if it is that is Necas by himself for the most part. Your second line scores a goal. It just doesn't count because the NHL is stupid.
Yeah.
Your third line gets you a goal, and your fourth line is on the ice for the Makar goal that gets you the first goal of the game. You essentially got production from every single one of your lines tonight.
Absolutely.
It's just you also got a mess of a hockey game, as you mentioned, through the first two zones.
It's hard to fight that too when you've got that much skewed production coming at different points of the game as well.
Yep.
You don't see the first line get going until the first period. The fourth line, I think, with that Brindley penalty was just kind of off-put a little bit too. You see Jack Drury come alive, especially at the beginning of the third period. You get them activating at different points in the night, and that certainly doesn't help.
Yep. Yeah, it's a lot of things stacked up in a way that some of it, that's life. Weird stuff happens. 3 random stick breaks for Colorado in this game. Some questionable calls, not just the fake offside, but the Jack Drury penalty in the first one, which the Avs actually kill, but boy, that's a pretty soft call.
Yeah.
The Avs don't really get any calls the other way. They get 1 power play only in this game. I was hopeful that the Avs could overcome that, and they did at least get it to overtime, but there is a part of me that is disappointed that they couldn't get the win out of a game like this.
And, I'm not generally that upset when the refs decide to eat the whistles.
Sure.
I am a big fan and a big supporter of letting the guys play, especially when you're looking at a game full of soft calls or potential soft calls. My whole deal is consistency.
Yep.
And making sure if the call is going like that one way, make sure you're calling that same exact thing on the other side of the ice.
Yep. It is what it is. I've been mad enough about the refs and then because of the stupid Landy goal. So I'll move on. I do want to get into some individual conversations. And I want to start with Scott Wedgewood.
Yep.
I don't think Wedgewood played bad tonight, if not for the overtime nonsense. In regulation, he had a save percentage above 900.
Yeah.
That's not a bad hockey game. It just wasn't the unreal game we've seen from him so far this season.
That third goal, maybe he wants back.
I think he's going to want that one back. Not that there's a terrible turnover right before it, so there are other problems there.
Right.
But yeah, I think he won't be happy he got beat short side on that one for sure.
He's been very used to carrying this team. I think he carries the team on his back for most of this.
Yeah.
And there are a couple games that you could give that to him as well. He absolutely did it during the first Utah game. That's the only reason the Avs win that.
Yes.
There's going to be breakdowns. Cannot be
that's a hockey game,
100% every single night. And this is just a perfect example of that. I don't think it is his best game. And I think he looks back at this and he's like, no, I've definitely got other film that I can pull from and be like, no, this was much, much better. But I think it's Scott Wedgewood. If there were to be, stars from the Avalanche tonight, he probably gets my first.
I don't know that I'd give him a star, but I think this game is a more normal Scott Wedgewood.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is, again, I really was not that bad. I had over a 900 save percentage in regulation. I would not be upset with this game from your backup goaltender.
No.
I just think games like this are what might concern me about him being a true starter. But I'll save this conversation because we might do a mini pod about it another day.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of other players to talk about. And what I will say is every player that I'm going to point out some bad on, there is some good too. This game gets to 3-2. Utah is ahead. And like 2 minutes later, Wedgewood makes a save on a breakaway from Lawson Krause that keeps the Avs in the game and allows them to at least get a point out of this later.
Beautiful stretch save.
Yep. So it's more complicated than just, this player was bad this game or this player was really good this game. There's a little bit of both throughout the entire game fully. As chat is talking about Brent Burns there, I really did not think Brent Burns had a good game at all. I think he was one of the people who struggled with the puck the most tonight, also made a couple of bad decisions. But he also lays a massive reverse hit towards the end of this game that gives a little bit more life to the Colorado Avalanche and ultimately helps charge them up and get that comeback to at least overtime.
Yeah. I think again, with the motto being, bright moments in an overall not great game, he, for me, was kind of one of the epitomes of that. He had certain moments where he'd have a breakout here, maybe a reach there, and I'm not mad at it. His age certainly showed, I think, tonight. If I'm going to put
in
it
a higher
anyway.
pace game, for sure.
Yeah. I think this was one of the more rough situations where you start asking those questions of, how much
can you
more
really play
viable,
this guy 20 minutes a night?
Yeah. Especially when the whole explanation for bringing him in is you want a guy who can eat minutes to give guys like Cale Makar, like a Devon Taves, a break.
Yeah.
And he's not a guy, if you're looking at a, last 5-minute push, he's not a guy that I really want out there on the ice for something like that, because he is not the difference maker that the Avalanche need in a situation. Now, that big reverse hit, was fantastic. Yeah. But in a game where you need a difference maker that's going to do a lot more than just lay a reverse hit, he's not my guy.
I think that's fair. I think it's a fair take. A bunch of other guys I want to talk about, but we do need to hit our second break of the show. If you want to go watch the Avs hopefully turn the puck over less than they did in this game in person, go get yourself to Game Time. Download the Game Time app today. You can go get your tickets. Join over 15 million people that get their tickets through Game Time. And when you sign up today with code DNVR, you can get $20 off your first purchase in the Game Time app. Of course, terms apply, but they have fantastic ways to get tickets, whether it's the last-minute ticket deals, the section selector, or just search for the tickets you want, and Game Time Picks feature will filter out all the junk and only show you the best tickets for the best prices based on what you searched for. You can go to an Avs game, you can go to the Broncos, Nuggets, pretty much any sporting event, and not just that, concert and theater tickets too, if that's your thing. I know our boy Kale was raving about Wicked before the game today, so
I loved hearing him nerd out about that.
If you want to go catch the Broadway show of Wicked, you can get those tickets through Game Time too. Jump in, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download that Game Time app today, and remember to use the DNVR code to get $20 off your first purchase. Tap Ticket Go. Download the Game Time app today. Once you got your tickets through Game Time, make sure you're also choosing chill. You know what? A tough loss. Maybe it's time to relax a little bit, kick it on the couch, and then you can open up a can of ice-cold Coors Light to enjoy your, I guess it's almost tomorrow. It's pretty late, but, all good. You can also find Coors Light in every liquor store in the country, but if you want it, you don't have to get up off your couch. You can go to CoorsLight.com/DNVR to get it delivered thanks to Instacart. Coors is, of course, cold lagered, cold filtered, and cold packaged for a smoother finish. When you embrace a chill mindset, it's a good time to choose chill and crack open a Coors Light. Make the most out of the times you choose chill. Get yourself that Coors Light delivered. Thanks to CoorsLight.com/DNVR. Please celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. Running through some other names that I just kind of wanted to talk about tonight. And obviously the big one is Marty Necas. Yes. The first two periods of this game might be the worst individual two periods of anyone on the Avs that has been played so far this season. Marty Necas was downright awful for the first two periods of this game. And it needs to be better than that. I'm not trying to make excuses for him. You can't have that. But he's the guy that stands out the most to me in the third period of, okay, at least he recognized where he was at. His game was poor. He simplified and ultimately is rewarded with the most important goal of the game for the Avs. I
am one of the biggest champions of the confidence that Martin Necas possesses. I think nice. And I say this just because when he can activate in the offensive zone and you get him going, his stick handling is downright insane to watch sometimes. That can sometimes come to bite him in the you-know-what. Yep. And that is exactly, I think, what we saw during this game. Again, talking about, simplifying your game. We watched him doing that during the third period. The exact opposite happens, especially during the first. You see him whiff on a couple pucks, trying to stick handle it around everybody and not quite realizing that he cannot do that all by himself. And, crazy concept, right?
Yep.
And I will say I do respect the accountability. I do respect him sitting down during the second intermission, realizing, no, something needs to change here. And that, I think, is the biggest motivator for watching the Avs come back to life during that third period, is if you see your best player realizing, oh, shoot, something's got to change, and then changing it.
Yes.
Like, that's going to change the momentum and tide for the entire team. MacKinnon, and on the line, I don't know if we want to jump into this as well. We can. I did not love.
Agree.
During this entire game, I thought, he had a couple spurts. Defense overall was not great, which I don't know why.
Worse than not great.
I don't know why I'm starting to get my hopes up after some of the things we've seen so far from him this season defensively. Maybe that's just me being delusional, but I did not love MacKinnon this game, and I don't know. Over time, you want to believe that your superstar best player on the team, or at least forward-wise, can get it done for you. Situations like in the neutral zone just can't happen.
Yeah, there is zero excuse for that turnover in overtime, and none. Nathan MacKinnon just has to make a better play than that, or make a better decision than that. And it's frustrating because we saw not 10 seconds before they go to enter the zone. MacKinnon doesn't like it. He circles back. Okay, great.
I'm fine with that.
Great. Reset. No problem. That's modern 3-on-3. It's a lot of circling. And then you just throw the puck away in the neutral zone for no reason. Yeah. And look, Nathan MacKinnon has not been a particularly good 3-on-3 player for a very long time in Colorado now. This is not news. It's not something I'm particularly upset with either, because at the end of the day, when you're playing hockey that matters, 3-on-3 doesn't exist.
Right.
It's not something that has a significant impact in that way. So I just don't care about this, and this is something we already knew about MacKinnon. And yeah, it's bad. It needs to be better, but 3-on-3 is a unique environment where I just discredit a lot of things. Where I struggle with this is the second part of this. And there are two angles I want to get into this on. One, okay, Nathan MacKinnon makes a terrible play. Fine. The game doesn't end immediately. He doesn't give up a breakaway because of this turnover. Utah possesses the puck, resets, goes back, and then comes down the ice and scores. And what happens when you go down the ice and score? Nathan MacKinnon is the last guy up the ice. After making a poor play, he gets beat up the ice by Utah, and they end up losing the game. Now, MacKinnon's guy ended up not getting the puck. It was the other guy that Necas also gets beat up the ice on, by the way. And you've set yourself up for failure here. And this is where I have a little bit of a bone to pick with Jared Bednar in this overtime. He starts Nathan MacKinnon, Brock Nelson, and Cale Makar. Awesome. You started Brock Nelson to win the faceoff. You win it. Awesome. You send Brock Nelson off to get another guy on. Put Val Nichushkin on. In any situation where you put Nathan MacKinnon and Marty Necas out together in 3-on-3, if they lose the puck, you're probably going to lose the game. They're not good enough defensively, mechanically, in a 3-on-3 situation to put up much of anything defensively.
And I think that's an important point to touch on, too, is in a 5-on-5 situation. I don't think there's any disagreement where you and I are sitting there saying they cannot get the job done. They are dangerous in the offensive zone. 3-on-3 is one of those situations where the puck is constantly moving. You're not getting it, like, it is really a game of possession. At that point, it is not like you're not getting giveaways in the offensive zone. It is really a who can hold on to the puck the longest and potentially force a shootout if you can't score. Marty Necas has a history of being a really, really good 3-on-3 guy. He's throughout his career, he's scored many overtime winners that have decided games and changed the tide of, what they go into their next game with for his team. This is not a situation. He is not a defensive guy.
No.
That Marty Necas is not, like, if you're asking me to name the best defensive forward out there, Marty Necas is at the very bottom of my list, or at least in the bottom 3.
Definitely low.
So I think in a 3-on-3 situation, Marty Necas is one of the first guys that I'm putting out there if you're looking to generate offense and you're looking for somebody to score a sharp shot. We see that come to life in the third period. He's got a great shot. But if you're looking for somebody who's going to back check, as dangerous as Nathan MacKinnon and Martin Necas are together, 3-on-3 is not the situation that I would say considers them more dangerous.
There's a reason at 5-on-5 you stick Arturi Lehkonen on that line.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying don't use Necas. I'm just saying don't use them together. You can run MacKinnon and Nichushkin. Then you can put Necas over the boards for the second shift with Nelson or Drury or whatever, Landeskog if you want. I don't care. We learned this lesson the hard way with MacKinnon and Mikko. And then you get rid of Mikko and you bring in Necas and you make the same exact mistakes.
You've got two guys who maybe don't play the same game stylistically, but are not very good back checkers.
Right.
And they're not going to be the guys that you rely on to play the defensive side of the puck in 3-on-3. And in that situation, you are playing, in most cases, playing a 2 forward, 1 defenseman. That 1 defenseman cannot be the one doing all the work because in most cases, those odd man rushes come.
You can only do so much.
Right, right.
You're limited on your ability to prevent those things, and you can't have both of your forwards getting beat up the ice because that's a 1-on-3 at that point.
If that's not the worst odd man rush you can get, like it's hard for one person to do all that work. And we talk a little bit about, putting all the weight of a game on Scott Wedgewood too. That's not on him.
No, the overtime is not on him at all.
But at the same time, you don't want to do that to your singular defenseman out there either.
For sure. We can rewind a little bit and talk about some of these other lines. I know we talked about the fourth line a little bit, but I do want to get into your thoughts on the third line tonight. Obviously, Jack Drury gets the goal to tie the game early in the third period. Is it a fortunate bounce to some extent? Sure. Are we content with what the middle six gave the Avs? I guess not even the third line, but the middle six. Did they do enough to work through some of the issues we saw tonight? Do some of those mistakes fall more on the top line than them?
I would say so. Yeah, I really liked what the middle six was able to provide tonight. Obviously, fall off aside after the overturning of the Landeskog goal. I thought they were solid.
Yep.
I think if you're looking at, production and roles, as we talked a lot about, especially in pregame, they lived up to that. I will say I wasn't Olofsson's biggest fan tonight.
Yeah,
and I think
was not
his numbers kind of showed that. He only played 13 minutes tonight. But I don't know. Jack Drury and Ross Colton I really liked in this game. That entire second line, especially Landeskog, who we've been looking to finally generate a goal. We get that. I think if we're talking about somebody who maybe didn't have the biggest fall off, Landeskog's probably the guy who maybe doesn't lose the most juice in the middle six. I really liked what he was able to produce in this game. I think he held on to a lot of his grit until everybody started picking it up in the third period. Overall, they were some of my favorite to watch tonight.
For the record, that third line was by far the Avs' most dominant line when it comes to possession. 86% for Ross Colton, 76% for Jack Drury, and a ridiculous 94% for Victor Olofsson as far as Corsi for in this game. Most of them were on the ice for 0 shots against. So really driving the puck the right direction on a night where there were a lot of turnovers. There is a lot of messy hockey going on. Third line understood the assignment very well for themselves.
And that comes to show in spades.
Yep.
Once Jack Drury is officially able to get on the board.
I will say the only line on the wrong side of possession in this game was the fourth line, but that is a little bit deceptive because the Avs were chasing the entire third period, so you saw a little bit of the numbers flow back the Avalanche way, which is something I do want to talk about. You can learn lessons from the other team, too. And the easiest lesson of all time to learn for the Colorado Avalanche is if you have a lead in a 1-goal game, do not turtle.
Right.
Because that's how a game ends up in overtime. And we saw that from Utah tonight. Not that I don't want to take credit away from Necas, an unbelievable shot to get the game tied. But a game where Utah was having a pretty easy time if not necessarily possessing pucks, there was sloppiness on their own end, but they were not struggling to get pucks going the right direction for the first 2.5 periods of this game. And then they just sagged off the Avs, went into turtle mode, and it allowed the Avs to get up and running a little bit. Learn that lesson from Utah.
Yeah.
Don't do that to yourselves, because I know there's going to be games, probably as soon as this weekend, where you're in a tight game in the third period. You need to play the right way.
It's especially important when you look at the back-to-back situation happening this weekend. That's something the Avalanche really do need to learn and learn soon. And thank God it is very early in the season for them to learn that lesson. I think it sometimes gets lost in translation throughout. But overall, I think the Avalanche have been pretty good about not getting caught in that hole.
Yeah.
In games where they are dominating on both sides of the puck and being able to play a consistent game, you see them, even if those games are held within to 1-2 goals. I think they've done a pretty good job at not laying back and releasing off the gas a little bit. You see them play a consistent game. As long as they can keep themselves out of that hole, there's not a problem for me at all.
Yeah.
If they can force other teams to do that and give them
great.
I'm not saying that the Avalanche were right to start off the game the way that they were. I want to make zero excuses for that. But in that third period push, again, you do see Utah start to pull back a little bit, and they capitalize. And I think obviously I don't want the Avalanche to become a solely third period team. That's exactly what we saw for a good stretch during last season. And I'd like them not to get caught in that hole.
That would be ideal.
But if they can capitalize on that earlier in the game and force teams to make those mistakes earlier in the game and pull back like that, I'm not mad at that at all.
Yeah, I would love to say you can learn something from every loss, and I think there's some truth to that. Mm-hmm. Especially on an individual level tonight, but I also am just not. It's way too early in the season to take every little detail of a loss and go, this was bad, this was bad, this was bad. Mm-hmm. You got to fix this, you got to fix that. Yeah, the Avs did a lot of bad stuff tonight. It's also they're 5-0-2 in
That's
7
what I
games.
wanted to kind of touch on too.
Yeah.
They are still one of 2 teams.
Yep.
That are still in this thing without a regulation loss.
Yep.
Which speaks in spades to what this team is able to do.
And we're coming away from this like, oh, they had an overtime loss and this is their worst game of the season.
Yeah. That's a great issue to have.
Pretty good. You're a pretty good hockey team if that's the case. You can see there's some real hockey coming up, though. That Carolina team sounds like a bit burdened by injury. Maybe the Avs catch a decent break there for Thursday night. But you have them, then you have the back-to-back with the second half of it against New Jersey, who just smoked Edmonton today. If you play like this against Carolina and New Jersey, you're not going to win.
No.
I'll put it to you that way.
No, not at all. Talk about opportunistic teams who have very dangerous offensive production.
Yep.
Your biggest thing against Carolina is taking advantage of some of the gaps on defense. But even then, that's not going to matter.
Right.
If you're playing a game like tonight.
Yeah. A couple of gaps on the other team does not solve a turnover machine of which you were. And I think it's important to note that, yes, the Avs had plenty of defensive zone turnovers, and those definitely stand out and glare a little bit more because they lead to scoring chances the other way. But this was not a defense as far as the 6 defenders on the ice issue. This was a team-wide issue with the turnovers tonight. Your forwards were just as bad, if not worse at times, than your defensive side.
Yeah, no, I think, again, we talk about bright and shining moments. I could probably name one situation for each player where I was like, okay, I kind of like that.
Yep.
But overall, like, it takes an entire team to win a game most nights.
Yep.
You can't rely on one line to generate all of your offense and then hope and pray that, everybody else can take care of business when you pull off the gas. Because if that's the mindset you get in, everybody's going to fall into that hole and you're going to lose a lot more than just one hockey game.
Oh, my bad. Did I say the wrong team? Was it Toronto? It was Toronto. You're right. Wrong team. They're all Canada. Half our chat will hate that I just said that, but it's fine. Either way,
No,
Jack Hughes had a hat trick. That's all. I know New Jersey was awesome today.
The important things.
Yeah.
No, but the last thing I want to see from this team is them to become too reliant on a MacKinnon like they did last season.
Yeah.
And then everybody just takes the back seat. Again, that's how you lose hockey games.
For sure.
More than just one hockey game. And we have seen through this first small stretch, everybody buying in, everybody contributing to a game. You see one or two guys having a bad night. That's normal. When it's the entire team, that's when you maybe start to ask a question of, or at least through two games, you start to ask the question of, is this something we need to have a more serious conversation about, and what can we fix to move on?
Yep. I don't think there's a ton to fix here either, right? Like, yes, there are things to fix. Obviously, you can't have that many turnovers, but it's not a conversation of like, look at all this film on all these things you did wrong. It's just make a better pass, make a smarter decision. You don't have to really dig deep to fix this problem.
The Avalanche were due for a game like this, I think.
I think that's a fair statement.
Yeah.
You saw some of their A games, especially lately against Boston and Columbus. The C game was going to come out at some point. And you got that, I think fair to say, from pretty much the entire lineup.
Yeah.
No one really, truly superstar level shot.
There's nobody I'd give an A.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Tonight.
I'm with that. I think we have a couple super chats to get to, and then we'll get into our final thoughts of the show. $5 from Ryan, who says, add another one to the Mac makes a stupid play in OT to lose the game counter. Dude constantly loses his head in 3-on-3 for how good he is. Yeah, it's just weird. It's a weird Nathan MacKinnon thing. You'd think he'd be, based on his skill set, one of the best 3-on-3 players in the league, and it just isn't. That's not how it's been for his career.
He's a guy, I think, who works better under pressure, and there's not a whole lot of that in 3-on-3.
Yep. Again, just not a... If the Avs were a team trying to squeak out every point to make the playoffs, maybe I'd care more. And if 3-on-3 was a thing in the playoffs, I'd definitely care more.
It's an 82-game season.
Yeah, it's just not something that 3-on-3 mistakes are never something I'm going to care a lot about.
No.
In the moment, sure, but on the big picture, no.
You can sleep on it and move on.
Yeah, exactly. $10 from RTV, who says, according to Connor McGahee, Toronto's explanation was Nichushkin forced the Mammoth defender to bring the puck back in the zone. That means it should have counted. Avs win this 4-3. I mean, I agree with your concept. Yeah, like the NHL legitimately didn't understand their own rule and got it wrong. But you can't really conflate the two things because you're in a 2-0 game and it looks completely different. Who knows? Maybe the Avs win that game 7-0 if that game counts. We don't know what that universe looks like. So I don't think you can really say the Avs would have won 4-3 if that were the case, but
it'd be easier to say that if like the momentum hadn't completely shifted.
Yeah.
Like if they were still like a little like, you know, pressing hard, but the fact that they just like completely
don't get me wrong, that call absolutely had a significant impact on this game.
There's also something to be said about the one icing call that led to Utah's third goal as well.
Yeah. It's an icing that, I mean, sometimes icings happen, but you would rather they didn't. And you would rather Arturi Lehkonen didn't kick a puck right to the middle of the ice to the other team. But those things happened. Then the incredible Drew saying, under the seemingly new terms and conditions, the OT goal shouldn't have counted because the Utah player stole the puck. And everyone knows that's a crime. Also, ESPN, it needs to get the hell away from hockey. Hashtag effing embarrassing. Yeah. I'm not trying to pick a fight with ESPN or anything, but
I have my thoughts.
It wasn't great. It wasn't a great broadcast. And I understand, like, most fans are used to like their home broadcast and seeing everything through their home broadcast lens. And oftentimes a national broadcast will do a decent job of splitting the difference and showing some about both teams. And oftentimes that just makes both fan bases feel like they were talking about the other team the whole game when it's not really true. But I think it was pretty clear that the NHL has given their broadcasters a directive to hype up Utah as the newest team in the league. I'll put it to you that way.
This is a team that especially Gary Bettman's bought a lot into as well.
Yeah.
Them being brand new, having just got their name, it makes sense from like they're new to the league or quote unquote new to the league and, kind of breaking out and reforming their narrative from a logistical standpoint. It's bullcrap.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not
to
wrong.
put it bluntly.
You're not wrong. This is a thing that from the Toyota chat from TJ there, you have commercial breaks and intermissions to do interviews.
Yeah.
Why are we doing interviews during live play?
This is a problem I've always had with just national broadcasts in general. There's a game going on.
Yep.
There's a job that these guys are being paid a lot of money to do. And I understand you have, rights and things that you're being told to do from producers, things that you need to get for your broadcast. Why is distracting these coaches from the game one of those things?
I don't know. I don't have a good answer.
I would love a clear-cut answer from national broadcasts about this, just because it is something I have never quite understood. Especially in a game that is so close as this one, where you're trying to, coach your team through certain situations. And
if you're up 6-1 in the third period,
maybe
off. Talk
that's
about
one
whatever
thing.
you want. Yeah.
Especially if it's a winning team. Like, I don't care at that point. But in a close game like this, where you're trying to coach your team through rough patches, and there's, I don't know. I don't know, man.
No, look. All the more reason to come watch our watch along instead of the ESPN broadcast, which, by the way, they have ESPN again against Boston on Saturday. So buckle up. Get ready for more of that.
Okay, cool, great.
Hopefully.
No more. If the Avalanche can get rid of it.
Yeah, I don't think they have the Sky Cam in Boston. I think we're safe. You never know, though.
Marked safe from the Sky Cam.
It
We'll
is
see.
what it is. Okay. We can kind of reel us back into this game as we wind things down here. If you're Colorado, how much of this is going to the film room? I said, I'm okay with throwing out a lot of this game. You said you're pretty okay with that too. Should the Avalanche feel like they have a lot of work to do, or are they throwing it in the bin also?
I think there's something to be said about rehashing a not letting poor starts happen conversation again.
Okay.
I think there's some good to come out of reminding them exactly what came out of the first stretch of the season last season.
True.
And letting them know they've, look at this 10-game segment so far. You guys have had great starts. You have certain games where you're getting off to early goals and you're capitalizing off of those. Your momentum's capitalizing and you're seeing a really strong Avalanche team. You get into a game like this and that all kind of goes down the drain.
Yeah.
Aside from the third period, you get something good from Jack Drury. That's about it. I think there is something to be said about reminding them that this is not how they want to play. They mentioned very early on during media day that they're buying in early. They are hungry. They are gritty. They want to go into this with a very strong winning mentality, and this is not the way to do it.
Is there real concern that the Avs are 5-0-2, but in a division they're 1-0-2?
Yes, solely because if this is a habit that they get into down the stretch, I hate looking early on into playoffs, but eventually, that's the final stretch.
It's the goal, yeah.
That's where you want to get to, and these are the teams that you are going to be seeing first.
Yep.
And the last thing, I think I can speak for the team here when I say the last thing that they want is another early exit. This is a team that they, again, have bought in on early. This is a very deep team. This is a team that on paper can get it done. But if they can't get it done against the teams they're going to see in the first, second, third round, that all goes down the drain. And there's what else is there to talk about at that point?
For what it's worth, if you're looking for a positive side, I'd rather they lose to these teams in the regular season than in the playoffs.
Yes.
But,
yeah.
The world doesn't necessarily work like that. So,
yeah. There's a certain point where, yes, winning the regular season does help win the playoffs. But my concern, and I don't know, again, they're still experimenting with things. I'm trying not to get too rattled this early on in the season, which is why I'm saying this. If this game were happening game 50, game 60, I might be a little more concerned.
If the Avs were 2-5 and this game happened, I'd be concerned. But they're not. They have 5 wins.
Yeah. No, they've been playing great. I'm not even going to call that fine. They have been playing really good hockey. So if there were different circumstances and this game happened, we'd be having an entirely different conversation. The reality is they're playing great hockey. They're playing smart hockey. This is a kind of one-off.
Yeah, and that's the goal, right? Make it a one-off. If they show up against Carolina and win that game, you pretty much forget about this loss immediately, right. Even with the ref nonsense that I refuse to forget about. I guess it's Toronto, not the refs, really. Whatever.
Yeah.
We are in overtime here, but it won't be a long overtime. You can join us on the DNVR.com where the conversation continues. Bailey, any final thoughts on this game before we get out of here?
You've got a strong opponent, as we mentioned, or at least multiple strong opponents heading into the weekend and finishing off the weekend, heading into a new week. This is a situation where I'm really hoping the Avs are coming back to Colorado saying we are not happy with this.
Yeah.
Yes, this might be a throwaway, but realizing that there is a dangerous team that is currently in town, gearing up to play through altitude, a team who, as of right now, I believe is 5-0-1, if I'm not mistaken.
Vegas is...
Carolina
has a regulation loss.
They
now.
do have a
the
regulation
other
loss.
night.
That is right. So 5-1-0.
Yeah.
So
there it is.
that's there we go. I knew they had a loss. I couldn't remember where that went.
Yep.
But this is a team who, despite the injury, is very, very strong, especially in the offensive zone, as they've proven over 5 games. This is not a game where they can afford to let off the gas and have it. This is a team they're playing that capitalizes on slow starts, and this is not a team they can afford to do that with.
There you go. Don't do that. Start strong. Hopefully they bounce back next game. We're going to wrap this thing up because it's well into tomorrow at this point. We do appreciate everyone hanging out. We will have an off-day pod tomorrow, so come tune in for that one. And then, of course, we'll be live for the rest of the games this week. We appreciate y'all one more time, and this has been the DNVR Avalanche podcast. We will talk to you on the next one.
We all silly like the mayor.